All right, so like I said, we did our basic form utensils, make it a spoon, and ours kind of turned slightly nightmarish the last time, but that's all right. So tonight we're going to do some more example modeling of utensils, kitchen utensils. Again, this assignment really is super loose for what you're trying to make. Whatever you want to assume is a kitchen utensil, spoon, spork, battle axe, sword, master sword. I don't know, whatever. I don't know, Halo sword. Cool. There you go. That's what you use for chopping onions. Yeah, full covenant snacks. Anyway, um, whatever you want to do, more power to you. Basically, we are just making some sort of semblance of a utensil, um, with using the form tool space. Now, again, you are not required to make it only in the form workspace, but the form workspace is where you will be making the bulk of your object of your utensils with outside of the form workspace as like details, as in like last time we used a sketch and extrude to cut like holes in a spoon to make a strainer, that sort of thing. Don't I'm not saying, oh, I want to make like a kitchen knife. Don't do just a basic sketch and extrude. I'm going to show you how to do that in the form workspace because that's what you need to be doing that in. That's the whole point of learning to work with the form workspace tools. So let's hop over and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we made our example spoons last class. Actually, the ones we made last class were far more unsettling, but that's all right. Just shifting over to auto color mode, just so you can see the difference. Again, your objects do need to be on their own components. So with this one tonight, some prior examples I made, albeit kind of like I said, a somewhat scimitar like kitchen knife, but yeah, sure, whatever. And I also made an example of a just a kind of basic spatula. Now this seems like okay, yeah, that I could have just made like as a sketch extrude, kind of sort of, but not because of how it's made. So I actually did this in the form workspace, and I'm going to show you how to do some basic stuff like this. So, as always, let's start a new project and save. Definitely save. Example in class, more utensils. All right. So, good thing to do is if you are going to be making some very differenty ones, go ahead and make your different components now. So, I'll go ahead and say I'm going to make, yep, one will be a spatula, or, yeah, and I shouldn't have left it on the activate. And the other one, yeah, some sort of kitchen knife and uncheck the activate box just so it doesn't already activate. All right, cool. So we got those all set. Whichever one you want to start with, doesn't matter. So let's start with the spatula. It's a little more simple, kind of, sort of, go from there. So starting with spatula, again, we are not starting with sketch and extrude. We are starting with the form environment. The little pink starburst guy here, the form workspace brings out the other tools. Now we're going to work with this essentially the same way we did before with the spoon, just in a couple of different approaches. Now, what we did before is started with a plane. You could do that, certainly. You can also, if you want to play with free form stuff, to work with a face. Where the face is just the individual squares. We talked about before, any of this stuff is going to be chopped up into sections. So a plane or a cube or anything like that, you're going to have your edges, which are the actual lines. You're going to have your vertices, which is anywhere there is a intersection. And then the face is the whole thing. Anything between the lines of vertices. Doesn't matter if you subdivide any of that kind of stuff or it's broken up anymore. Doesn't even have to be even. You can subdivide it in different ways. You can even go full on and chop everything into smaller and smaller bits. You're still going to have those whole things are faces, intersections are vertices. You get the idea. Now, with any of this stuff, you can play with any of this, but remember the best way to start simple and add complexity later. So if you want, you can play with starting with a face. Standard procedure, you start by selecting a plane, and from there you're building little boxes. With this, it's a little bit more difficult to work because you're really more free form making this stuff. So I don't recommend working this way to start because it's easy to get lost. I'd start with prefabricated or pre-made forms. With that, let's get rid of that. Start instead with a plane. So this is more like sketching. To begin, I'm going to start my plane toolbox has it selected as a center point rectangle rather than a 2-point. That'll help me keep things symmetrical. You don't have to start on the center point, but I do recommend working on a major axis. So let's start by just creating what will end up being, probably the, we'll make the spatula and then the other parts. All right. So remember, don't hit enter. Use your left click, just start the selection. All right, I want to hit it there because then you get to make your subdivisions here. You also get to apply symmetry. So with this, all right, I want to add symmetry, mirror. Sure, let's go lengthwise. That's going to go right across the y-axis. You can see it's highlighted green. Great, that's what I want. Faces you can add and subtract, add more, add less, add more, add less. I would leave this, at least this one, left and right, simple symmetry, 2 faces. There we go. You can add more later if you want. Depends, totally up to you. Now with this one, depends on where you want to go with this. I would recommend if you just kind of went to freeform, play around. But it is a good idea to start with a reference image just so you don't go completely off the rails. But honestly, it's your project. Do whatever you want to do. With this one, unlike before, I am going to add a little bit of symmetry to this. The problem is, see how that changed things. Because I now have symmetry, I'm trying to apply symmetry across 3 faces. So in this case, I probably need to go ahead and add more to 4, so I have left and right. I'll show you why I'm doing this in a moment. Hit OK. There we go. I have my symmetry applied. It's not centered. That's all right. Because what I want to do now, I'm going to go to the top view, and I'm going to make this into the blade, and then I'm going to create the handle. So what I've done here, just made a flat section here. I probably could have gone with even fewer parts. Wouldn't have been a bad idea. I'm going to use my edit form. I'm going to select edges, and I'm just going to grab those 2 edges. And instead of dragging straight up, because that's going to morph everything, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude those. So by pressing Alt and holding Alt, you can see I can start to stretch stuff. It's a pretty handy tool, and I'm using just the directional arrow. I'm not using the pan because otherwise that's going to do some weird stuff. Don't want that. Now, one quick thing. Do you see what happened though? This is split. How the heck did this happen? That's one of the issues with extruding just by faces and such. You have to make sure that you also grab the center point. So what I mean by that is, let me Control Z, shrink that back down from before, and I'm going to change my selection filter to all. I have to make sure that I grab faces and that point. So it's going to show here, I've selected 2 edges and a point, because now when I press and hold Alt, that is not splitting around on me. So good. That's what I need. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and, again, stretches. Each time you stop, release Alt, press it again to continue, if you want to extrude. Otherwise, like from there, if I release both hands and then click again, I'm only moving the edge. I'm not adding an extra edge. Doesn't really matter in this case. It's totally up to you. But I am going to need that bend to change a little bit. So we'll figure it out in a minute. All right, up and up and up. Sure, that looks somewhat handily. Totally up to you. From here, what I want to do is I want to angle those edges just to make it more of like a spatula, how they're usually more like that. Obviously, this is yours, so make it however you want. But if I want to make those edges a little bit differently, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all 3 sides there. I double-clicked on one edge, select once, and it's just the one that's blue. Double-click, oops, just the edge, and it selects all the things. But I accidentally got out of edit form. So go back to that, double-click. All right, now I'm going to use the rotate because it's mirrored. See how they rotate in and out like that. Really simple, pretty handy. You can obviously make this, I don't know, turn this into a pizza peel. I don't know, whatever. Yes.
So I have my like the initial object that I created,
Mhm.
but it's grayed out. So when I hit edit, I can't select it. So you can kind of see it there. Right.
I don't know. Give me a minute. Well, let me check with that. All right, not sure what's happening with that one, but all right. So right there, we've got a kind of sort of spatula form. Great, but it's flat. How do I actually bend this? We're going to do exactly that. Now, same deal, edit form. I'm going to turn to the right side, or just side, and I need to select the whole thing. So let's select by all, and we'll use a selection box from the right so it selects all the things. Now, the problem is if I try to rotate this, well, one, it's going to do some weird stuff, but that's all right. We'll fix it in a minute. So if I do that, I can bring it back up to straight, but it's all going to keep this curve because this is all T-spline curvature. This is all basically a planar geometry created with fit point splines. What we use with our first bits of drawing, it curves based on lines and such. So this is going to kind of mess us up if we don't change where some of the lines are. So what I'm going to do, Control Z, what I want to do first is I want to move where this edge is. So I just double click that edge and I want this to be closer down here. Now I could try to just move this, but obviously that's doing some weird stuff. So the other option is I can actually select by faces and such, and I can use the scale tool. Let's try to shrink that and then move it. So big thing you could get, like I said, you could very easily get into some trouble with this stuff if you don't make use of some of the other scale tools, things like that, or you get really lost. It's really easy to do. Another thing I can do is I can try to straighten this edge here because it curved like it did. Let's see what we have in our toolbox. Oh, I didn't want to cancel that. I wanted to. That's all right. One of the things we can do, let's try Crease. I'm going to select Crease, and what that does is it takes a curved thing and makes it a folded edge. We talked about pieces of paper before. We've got a bend versus an actual sharp crease. So let's see what that one does. I'm going to select that line, and it straightened it. That's exactly what I want to have happen. I want that to straighten. Great. Okay. So again, I can try to edit this a little bit, but you know what? I'm not opposed to that spatula look. That works for me. All right, cool. So now let's go back and bend this up a little bit. Select selection filter and edit form, all the things. Select from the right all the way up because I want this to bend right there. All right. That boots me out of that every time. So I'm going to use rotate. However, it's going to do all kinds of funky stuff. But what I can do from there, let me just bring this up until it's flat again. That line's flat. And so it can probably go up just a teeny tiny bit more. Probably one is going to be too much. So in between, probably have to use like a 0.5. 0.25? Oops. And that looks pretty flat. With this project, close enough is definitely going to be close enough. All right, we'll go with that. Works for me. That's probably a pretty extreme handle on your for a spatula. Probably go a little bit less extreme, but you know, you see where we're going with this. If you want to try and shallow it up, same deal. All right, there we go. That was a little bit better. All right, cool. That works for me. Hit OK. All right. That's pretty much a really basic spatula part. But right now, it is just that surface thickness. It's only currently the thickness of a sheet of paper that's been folded. I need to literally add dimension, add thickness to that. So I'm going to use the thickness tool. Thicken. It's right there, one of the other keys. Under the modify. Select thicken, select the face, and add, I don't know, 1 millimeter thickness. Now, remember that you have a couple of options here. Well, we'll say 12 for now, and you can see what's going to happen. You have a couple of options with your toolbox. You have thick and tight, sharp, soft, and no edge. If I did sharp, obviously it's going to make it like a straight extrude, like that. Repeat thicken. If I do soft, it's gonna make it squishy and round. Not quite what I want for this tool. The other option is no edge. Now, this is if you basically want to offset. So that's exactly what I've done with this. This is using the offset tool. I don't want to use this right now, but I just wanted to show you what that tool can do. Let me go back. The thicken I do want to use is sharp. That, I don't know, let's say 2 millimeters. That's probably a bit thick, but whatever. Hit okay? All right. It's a nice sharp edge. I've got my kind of sort of spatula look, and it's all bent at a decent enough angle. All right, cool. Let's save. Well, actually, hang on. When you're finished with this, this is all I need for this tool. But really simple. It's all sharp edge, nice sharp bend. I use the crease tool to make a sharper bend. Great. Finish form. All right, goes back. It is a solid body because it's enclosed, all that. Let's save. Spatula blade. All right. Now I want to make a second tool, and with this, you can do this either as one object, or I can go back in and actually create a second one either way. What I mean by that is I exited the form workspace. I could start an entirely new one because I want to make the handle here, or I could go back and right click, edit form. In this case, just for the sake of a little convenience, I'm going to create form. There we go. Now, selection of box is going to be a little problematic because I don't have any options here. Now, the thing is, though, I want to use like, let's say like box or something like that to create the handle. Well, the problem is that handle is modeled on an edge. Now, technically, I could do a couple of different things. Like, I could always just make it separate and try to get it to even out. But just like we did with the Jewel project, you can create construction planes based off of things. So let's go to construction plane, and let's see here, which is playing along path. Sorry, I had a brain fart. I forgot which one it was. There's so many options here. Let's do tangent plane. Now the problem is because the way these things work, sometimes it won't let you select stuff. It does some weird things because form doesn't read, even though it's a solid object, it doesn't read the same as a solid body if I had created this like through like just our standard sketch and extrude stuff. So it doesn't let me select a lot of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel, finish form, and you can either like just delete that one, or I'm just going to move the time slider between there, because what I want to do is let's try constructing a plane. Offset plane. No, not offset plane. Sorry. I want to put. Dang it! I keep hitting the wrong button. Tangent plane. No, I don't want a tangent because that's not a circle. Let's do plane at. Probably just plane at angle. Yeah. So what you can do is, since this does read straight, I can select one of these edges. Now, the problem is it's wanting me to create an angle that way, but let's rotate it 90 degrees. There. So now my plane, construction plane, is actually at the same angle as the handle. So that was plane at angle. That one worked pretty well. Hit OK. All right. So let's just say I had deleted that edit form, create form, and I want to use now that plane that I just created as the reference, not my standard X, Y, X, Z, all that stuff. I can use my actual plane that I just created. There we go. All right. So it's going to make this right there. So you got some options, standard thing again. We could try, let's just use the same plane there. All right. So I'm going to use Z-axis, smack in the middle, and let's just make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Hit OK. It's just a plane. That's all. Link symmetry. Nope. I want width symmetry so that it is actually, where is my, oh, no. There we go. So same deal. I got symmetry side to side. Away we go. Okay, cool. So same deal. You can play around with this. You can stretch this around as you want. We can make curves on this. We can do our edit form, all of that. Uh, let's see. I don't know. Let's move that out a little bit. We can make this kind of like just a weird handle. But if you wanted to add complexity to this, I said, okay, let's try adding some edges. So I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna do double. Oops, not simple. I want both, so it goes on both sides. Adding edges simply subdivides the surface a little bit, like so. Okay, that just added a little bit of complexity. The reason I would want to do this is because now I could select like by vertex, and I could move these in and out a little more directly. So it just adds, if there's more points, now I can add more variation. That's all. So let's just say I just made like an extra wide handle. There we go. Cool. All right. Same deal. I want to thicken this. Same. This time I'm going to use, we'll use soft. And if the handle was 2 millimeters, I don't know, let's say 10. Cool. There we go. Now, the problem is it did make this a little bit larger, or sorry, it's floating above my form, but easy fix there. Back to edit form. Select my face, and let's just select all the faces. So all I'm going to do is just drag that down, make it a little bit thicker. There we go. Hit OK. Cool. All right. So remember, you can play around with this however you like, but now finish form, and we have kind of a blobbly handle. Last thing on this would be adding details. So what I did for the details in this, cutting holes for the spatula, and what I didn't do on this one, but I did do on the knife, let's add some little, there we go. Let's add some little pins to it. So that would be where the handle actually attaches. All right. I save handle. Oops, apparently I had that on. All right. Easy thing, sketch and extrude for the base. We're outside of the form workspace. We're back to our regular stuff. Sketch and extrude. There we go. If you need, use a project tool to copy the outside edge. Press P, and we'll select my body. There you go. Just because sometimes it's a little bit easier to deal with just an outline than actually having the body there. I'm going to use a center point rectangle right on the axis. I don't know. Make that, sure, 6 sounds reasonable. I don't know, 80? Sure. And let's put a little curvature into that. Fillet would be sidey side. Select all the things. Yeah, error. I know I'm changing things up. That's okay. Select, 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 select. All right, great. Yeah, that's kind of sort of roundy. Works for me. Okay. Yes, I know. Change the constraints. It's okay. And instead of making copies of that, yeah, just use the rectangle pattern tool. Double click the rectangle there. I want this to go in symmetrical directions, and let's have some extras. Yep, there we go. Made that. Finish sketch. Great. Unhide the spatula handle or blade. Label your objects. It makes things so much easier. And I'm just going to use Extrude to cut through this. So select my sketches. And actually, since it's on the bottom plane, on the base plane, if I select to object, I can just select the top there and it should chop through. And if it's not, just use the slider to drag your object all the way through. The red goes to cut. Hit OK. There we go. Now see what happened? It wasn't all the way down. Should have made it go both directions. Go back, edit feature. Not a problem. With your direction option, go 2 sides or symmetric. It doesn't really matter. We'll just do symmetric. Way bigger than it needs to be, but that's all right because it does in fact go all the way through. No big. That's it for that one. Now for the handle, of course, we can add little details. Remember that you can sketch on surfaces, but you cannot sketch, excuse me, on forms. Even though we've converted it back to a solid, see, it doesn't like to select by there. That's why we use the construction plane. So it hid that construction plane, just bring that back up. No problem. That's exactly the same thing. Cool. There we go. So I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a couple of circles that'll end up as cylinders. Using right on the axis. I don't know. Make a pretend. Sure. Another one. I don't know. There. Great. That's it. Finished sketch. Now I just extrude those two. No, I want both of them. Not letting me grab it. There we go. So from there, if I extrude it symmetric both ways, that's going to cut through. Cool. I made my little chop, but I also want those to be solid objects. So one last extrude, circle, circle. And let's just extrude this symmetric. I'm going to see if all works. Yeah, see, it's done. Extent types, like I said, form objects, they work differently. The Fusion doesn't like to read them as like we've done with basic sketch extrudes. It kind of messes with it. So you have to do a lot of this stuff manually. So I'm just extruding this so it just sticks out a little bit. That's all. Okay, that's probably a little bit too much, but you get the idea. Yeah, that's fine. Nope, I don't want to join. I'm just going to leave this as two new bodies. And we'll fillet those just to make them slightly smoother. Always throw in the details. I don't know. 1 millimeter curve? Sure. Cool. All right, there you go. Last step with that would just be adding appearances. Press A, appearance. If it brings it up. Let's see what we got. Sure, we'll make something super fancy. Ooh, bamboo, rich mahogany, walnut. Walnut's always pretty. Drag and drop onto the object. Walnut handle. Sure, sure. And where's our metals? I don't know. We'll do some brass pins. Ooh, polished brass. Make sure you download it if it hasn't finished. Fancy. And we'll go with incredibly toxic lead. We'll go just straight. Ooh, there we go. Polished iron. Let's see what that looks like. No change whatsoever because we're not in the full rendering environment. But there you go. All right. So a few extra steps. Kind of got a little wonky, but one of the main things to remember is you cannot select, even though it's selecting now, you can't sketch on faces that are from the form environment. So you have to create planes that share that. That's all. No different than what we've been working on that one. You just have to make a plane. All right. Let's save that. Spatula done. Cool. So wonky, but again, this doesn't have to be exact. Close enough is close enough. All right. The other one I wanted to model was something like some sort of kitchen knife. So let's do just that. Again, if you want to bring in an image, great. Try to at least make it a reasonable size. And that's only just because I don't know if you wanted to print this. I mean, obviously, you're probably if you make a broadsword, you're definitely not gonna be able to print this on the printers, but we could make a tiny little, I don't know, letter opener version. Anyway, all right, so let's make something with this. Create form, back to where we were. All right, so I'm gonna use this as again plane, and I'm gonna make it like left to right. Same deal. Start on one of the major axes, make it as big as you like. Doesn't matter because we're going to stretch and manipulate this anyway. So I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Sure. Tell you what, we'll make something more like a cleaver. All right. Now with this, I do not want to add symmetry because I'm making the blade like I'm looking down at a knife sitting on the table. And I'm going to make a profile and then use the thicken tools to add dimension to it. All right. So sure, let's start it simple there, but let's add a little bit of detail the other way. Let's try to leave it a little more simple. We'll add a couple of details that way. All right, great. Hit OK, no mirror, great. First thing on this one, I want to add a little bit for the what will be the handle. So I'm just grabbing just the edge right there, and you can drag it out, but oops, I accidentally still had symmetry on. All right, so perfect example here. Let me cancel that. If you accidentally left symmetry on, all you have to do, go to symmetry, clear symmetry, select the thing. You're all set. Free and clear. Great. Back to edit form. Let's grab just that edge and drag it outward. Now, again, the problem is it's going to drag it that way because it's all connected. So, Control Z, let's Alt and extrude. There we go. Much more of what I wanted. Still a pretty beefy handle, but that's all right. Okay, select from there. From here, you're just going to kind of play. I think I'll select a point, start dragging that up. Probably should have used the soft commit controls. Let's turn that on and see what that does now. Drag that up. That pulls things a little bit more easily. Good. All right. Kind of sort of cleaver. Sure. Let's drag by edges. I'm going to select all of those and I'm going to drag it down. This is going to be a mildly horrifying thing. All right. Can drag this out a little bit more. Sure. Whatever. Now, if I can try to straighten this out a bit again. So let's hit OK. And let's try straighten. This is for exactly what it says. If you end up with accidentally little wobbly faces or edges, you can try to straighten them out. Sit there. Let's select some edges. T-spline vertices between that one and that one. That one? Ooh, that's getting funky. Don't know that I like that. I'll try it once more just to see what it looks. Just to try a couple of things here. Like I said, a lot of this, just play. See what happens. Yeah, that's not the worst. I know that's basically what I just did before. Whatever. You get the idea, dang it. Now, try once more. Just want to show you what happens if I move some stuff around. Cool. All right. Good enough. Now, what happens if I wanted to, like, I don't know, make this actually rounded and such? Can I select details, move vertices? Yes. But you can also, remember, you can do things like grab faces. You can use the scale tool to move stuff in and out. So if you want to shrink the space between them, that's how that works. Even more so. Woo. Not quite. Do some weird stuff. Okay, one last thing I wanted to show you on this is what if I wanted to actually add a rounded feature to this? Easy way to do this would be select just a vertex and literally hit delete on your keyboard. Warn you, it does some funky stuff. In this case, just round it out. So this is going to be treated as kind of a corner, but there's no point there. So you can try some different stuff. If you want, you could then try something like scaling that up to try to modify the curvature. So again, all of this is so much of this is absolutely just playing with, just see what happens. Again, we're not trying to make like, well, really overly functional, just something that kind of sort of looks the point or the part rather. Okay, that's good enough for now. Okay, hit okay. Now we want to add thickness. However, I want to add thickness and still make it a sharper object. So I'm going to go to thicken, or rather, hang on a second. Before I do that, save. Cleaver blade. Go to thicken tool. In this case, I'm going to use sharp. Now it's going to make it more square. And yeah, 10 millimeters is going to be pretty beefy, but just for the sake of this. Now, the reason I've done this is because it's given me a nice sharp edge everywhere else. However, I want these two edges, top and bottom, to come together. Now, what I could have done, repeat thicken, and done it no edge, and brought these together using a different tool, and I'm going to show you a second. But I've run into problems then closing up the backside. So I have found the best method for doing like knives and such. Thicken using the sharp tool or the sharp thicken type. And then what we're going to do is going to go around and delete some faces. I'm going to select in here, just all the way around, where I'm going to make a blade edge. And we'll see about the backside. Delete. So now I have a partially open surface. You can see the back is solid, but there's space in between. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify, excuse me, and where are you? Weld vertices. So what this does is it takes two vertices that are apart from one another, snaps them together, and joins them as one. So select weld vertices. You have your different options. Vertex to vertex, meaning just like a lot of the tools we've used before, the first one you select is what will move. The second one you select is where it will move to. That's using vertex to vertex. But to midpoint, obviously they just meet in the middle. That's the one we want. And then keep creases. Show you what that means in a moment. So let's start. 1, 2, brings them together. 1, 2, 1, 2. This can do some weird stuff. So let's check the keep creases box. Getting funky. Yeah, this part gets a little weird right there. There we go. Now that happened because I selected the keep creases midway through. Let me just cancel it so it and redo it. This time we'll select keep creases right from the get-go. 1 to 1, 1 to 1, so on and so forth. There we go. So that holds a little bit easier. So that lets all that work. Now I will warn you. Let me hit OK here. You can see it. Let me see it. Let me change the color mode and see it a little bit more clearly. Sometimes this will create a divot here. And what you might have to do to fix that is sometimes you have to delete faces and then just go through and then go to fill hole. In this case, though, I'm going to try something else. Straighten just those two. I ain't doing squat. Cool. Whatever. We'll try select line. Nope, didn't do squat. All right. So let's try it this way. In case it did, in fact, give us an error, I'm just going to delete those and see how that changed right there. Now we're going to go to just fill hole. What you do to use fill hole is you just select the perimeter edges. Sometimes you can select individually. Ooh, that did some weird stuff. You have your different options. Let's try collapse. Oof. Keep creases. Yeah, that did some real funky stuff. Let's try double clicking. All right, so in this case, I've actually made everything so much worse. Mainly because there wasn't actually a problem before. So I'm just cycling through some of the options. Fill star was one of them. Let's try unchecking to keep creases. That just turned it into like a paddle. All right. So honestly, it looks like it was okay before. So cool. Easy peasy on that one. That just means cancel and control Z. All right. Worked before. There wasn't a problem this time. I just wanted to show you if you ran into that, that's how it happened. All right, cool. So that's pretty much a sort of kind of blade edge. Let's hit OK, save. Blade edge. Snazzy. All right. So we can use the thicken tool here to create a handle, but in this case, I want to show you, actually, no, I do want to do that because I want to do some other forms. So before what we did is we created a completely separate form. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could just start a new one right here. So let's do, let's create with a box, sure. So, yep, on the same plane. Come on, it's giving me trouble selecting it because it's inside of that. All right. From the top, same deal. Just going to make something that's a little bit larger than I need. And I can, of course, modify it afterwards. Hit OK. Make this a little bit bigger. Now, the problem is if you make it larger one way, it gets larger the other way. And I can always just kind of modify that afterwards. So I'm going to leave it right there. Symmetry. I don't want symmetry on this. At least that way. I want symmetry height-wise. There we go. Now, the problem is, see, it's all floating above the handle. We'll just move it into place afterwards. Okay, cool. That'll work. And the reason I'm doing this way is I want to add some subdivisions up here. So I kept it simple this way. Let's add some edges just there. Hit OK. And let's do it again. Sure. Cool. All right. Now the reason for this is I can go to now edit form by vertices, and I can just select some of these. I'm gonna skip them, one, and then skip to the other. And by dragging out, kind of sort of finger grooves. That's all. Obviously, you add a bunch more, you're gonna get a better result out of that, but I just wanted to show you a quick way where you could do something like that. That works. Hit OK. Now, while we're still in the form environment, might as well move this object, and I want to bring that down. Now, the easy thing to do is, because I have the mirror tool aligned, I'm going to line that up. Try to line it up right smack in the middle of my blade. If it's a little off, it's not going to be the end of the world. There's obviously much better ways to do this, but this is just a really basic way of working with some of these tools. And hit OK. All right. Now, granted, the hand is a little funky. I can always go through and fix that a little bit, or as best as I can. Let's try edit form, and I just want to select by there, just so I can try to bring the, oops, what happened? Oh, I didn't select both of those. When you're working above and below, something like that, sometimes it's easier. Instead of just individually selecting, use the actual selection box, so you're making sure to grab both the top and bottom or any vertices in a line. And yeah, I'm just going to drag that forward so it kind of sort of matches a little bit better. That's it. Okay, cool. That'll work for me. Hit OK. And now we're going to do the same thing of the spatula. Want to add a couple little pins. So same deal. Sketch. Yep, onto there. Something, something. I don't know why it rotated on me. And we're just going to select somewhere there-ish. Now let's make that a little bit bigger so you can actually see it. Cool. And this time, I'm just going to copy and paste and move the other one somewhere over. Whatever. That seems about right. What I could have done the first time was copy and paste, and I forgot sometimes. All right, hit OK, and extrude those. Sketch, sketch. Again, I'm having trouble selecting the second one for whatever reason. If you run into that, just hide some stuff so you can select both of them. Now remember, Extrude works, Fusion works on what it can see. So if you have something hidden, it's not going to affect it. Make sure you have both your objects visible. Direction, symmetric, just go all the way. It cuts through. Cool. Now do that again to make your pins. Extrude, same selections. My extrude tool. There we go. Come on. There we go. And new body. Boop. Sticks out just a little bit. Why not? Why not? Nope. I want new body. Great. And again, I'm just going to add a quick little fillet to the tops. Oh, my pin went slightly below. Where the heck is it? Oh, I accidentally extruded only one direction instead of both. I'll fix that in a second. I don't know, 1 millimeter. Cool, there you go. All right, switch back to color mode. Let's add some appearances. Same deal, why not? I'll make some of these match. Brass pins, rich walnut, and I don't know, something else. Heck yeah, platinum or palladium. Extra fancy. And it makes almost no difference because, again, you're in this working environment. All right, there we go. So, cleaver done. So there you go. Couple extra steps we needed to take to make the parts. Wow, that is an enormous cleaver, or it's a tiny spatula. I'm not sure which. I did not measure these. So at worst, scale it, whatever. So again, try to make the details there. So like the handle, yeah, it's there. Realistically, I would like actually join these together or something like that. But in this case, we're just working with the form tools. I just want you to experience them. I just want you to play around with them. see how it works, play around, make whatever you please. Sure, incredibly gigantic, oversized cleaver, or comically small spatula for mixing, I don't know, flipping quail at omelets. I don't know. Anywho, make what you want. Use the form environment, use the sketch tools to add details, cut throughs, anything like that. You can, of course, still add like text and things like that to these. You can, if I wanted to make like, I don't know, write words on it. I know that's what text is. Um, go for it. Whatever you want. But just remember that we are making 3 objects total. They do need to all 3 be on their own component. Make whatever is entertaining to you. All right. Good luck with it.